Hi folks, Jennifer Nelson here with Pocket Hours. Pocket Hours is the only podcast made by realtors for realtors. Come listen as I interview high producing brokers to hear their best practices. And don't forget that while you are listening, you are also earning clock hour credit. Tune in every other week to hear from someone new, and please remember to tell your broker friends about Pocket Hours so more folks can elevate their business. Be the agent you would hire. Looking forward to having you listen in. Hi folks, Jennifer Nelson here with Pocket Hours. I am thrilled to have you hear from Kristine Milkovich today on the show. Kristine is a part of and co-creator of the Milkovich team with John L. Scott, and she's also the director of PR and communications in a corporate role for John L. Scott. And I've known Kristine for years, and I'm just excited for you to hear from her. She is a wordsmith. She is in an obvious role of a communications director because she can say things so well, and you can grab some of her comments today and use them in your own business. Not to mention the Milkovich team is in the top 1% of production in Washington State. So I'm excited for you to hear her tips and tricks. Here we go. Hello, folks. Jennifer Nelson here with Pocket Hours, and I am just thrilled today, after many attempts on both of our ends to get to talk to each other, I finally get to interview Kristine Milkovich. Thank you, Kristine, for being on the show today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be with you.
We are busy women, and I know you have a couple different hats that you wear as the director of PR and communications for John L. Scott and also the creator of the Milkovich team. And so I know that you have many things back to back to back. So the fact that you took the time and the extra time to be on the show means a lot. And I'm just excited for our viewers to get to hear from you because you have a lot to give. So thank you again for being on the show. And here we go. So Kristine, tell us a little bit about, I want to know about pre-real estate Kristine. Like, what was happening in your life prior to getting this gig going?
Let's go back about 10 years. I was in the salon professional beauty industry. And I'm going to grossly age myself. I was in that world for 23 years. And, really at the end of the day, wore about 5 hats in those 23 years. I started as a working salon stylist, and then moved into being a salon owner, and then moved into being an industry national educator for 2 leading brands that are owned by L'Oreal corporate. And then really parlayed my last 6 years of that 23 years as the director of field education and training for L'Oreal based in New York. And it was a ride, and it was a wonderful industry and a great career, but that's what I did before real estate.
That's crazy. And what I love about real estate is that nobody wakes up and says, you know what I want to be when I grow up is a real estate agent. But what I love all the different industries that make their way into what we do. And I know that there's crossover. So before I get a little bit more deep into who you are, tell us a bit about how you see what you did do in the salon industry working for you in the real estate industry.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's those fundamental pillars of genuinely caring about people is A. B, having the ability to absorb and manage being in a very high-paced sales-focused career. I also think that listening skills and being able to really take those pain points for people that are coming to you for coaching and guiding, and they have a need. Like in my first world, it was a great cut, a great color, a great foil, a great salon experience to take into their lives every day. And that just sort of parlayed into real estate really well because people have a need. They have a pain body usually that you can take care of and love on them and make it right. And, sales, marketing, and listening skills. So it was in that regard, it was a pretty good trend. I wouldn't say smooth because I had to learn a new field, but I did know those skills and have those in my tool bag.
I love that. And I will say this for the listeners too, that I don't know Kristine super well, but anytime I interact with you, Kristine, it's always a great experience. And I mean that. I don't flatter much. So there you go. There's my compliment. But that's to say, I think you, because of your background in what you did, knowing people and actually being genuinely interested in their lives, whether you're cutting their hair or helping them buy a house, those skills are harder to teach. You can learn the industry, but if you know people, you're starting off, I think, 75% ahead of everybody else. So I love that. I love that that background sort of got you ready for this next career. That's
Absolutely.
awesome. So 10 years ago, you decided to go, I'm going to go sell real estate. Tell us about that.
Well, it was a little bit of a push shove. At that time in the L'Oreal organization. There was a reorg that happened, and really, from a national standpoint, about 30 people got impacted, and I was one of them. And I'll make this brief. I was at a Prince concert. Yes, him, the singer, the
Nice.
god called Prince, with my
Yeah.
sister Lisa. People say, what's your coming out story in real estate? We were at a Prince concert in Pike Place Market, and I was looking for my next opportunity, brushing myself off from being a little bit surprised that I had been exited out of my 23-year career. And my sister, Lisa Milkovich, recruited me into real estate. And the next morning we were like, did that really happen? And here we are 10 years later.
I love it. That's right. The Prince, the artist formerly
Yeah.
known as Prince, and Kristine, the salon owner formerly known as. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay. And then tell us a little bit about your life when you're not selling real estate, your family, pets, what's going on there?
Yes, so I'm married, and my beautiful wife is Chris Tanaka, and I'm so fortunate to be building out a life with her. We live in Shorewood, Burien. We have a little French bulldog named Panda. I'm very fortunate that my mother's close. She's in Redmond. My sister, whom I'm also a business partner with, lives in Renton. We're a pretty strong community from a geographical standpoint. We see each other a lot. We break bread. We do, girls' getaways and all those fun things. So when I'm not working, I just try to be active. I love the Northwest life, the all of it, the skiing, the kayaking, the hiking, wine tasting. I'm up for all of it.
That's so great. And I think pre-COVID, I saw quite a few posts of travel. It seems like you all get to travel quite a bit.
We definitely try to make that part of our balance. We work feverishly as entrepreneurs, and certainly now with my expanded role with John L. Scott Corporate, but carving out that time to get away and see the world and get inspired and fill that travel cup is essential for my life, for sure.
No doubt. It gives you a new perspective for sure. Okay, so the listeners on this call are wide and varied, and so I want you to speak specifically to people right now who just got in, and they're pretty overwhelmed. If you can take yourself back to that original time for you, and sort of how do you think the first couple of years went for you, and what would you do differently, and what do you think you did well in starting to get that foundational element in place for the next 7 years?
Number one, and sharing my coming out story just now at the Prince concert, it's self-evident that I had a great mentor. My sister had been tenured long before I joined real estate, and an award-winning tenured John L. Scott broker. And so my advice to any new talent or anybody coming in to the industry is, if you don't have a Lisa Milkovich or a sister you're partnering with,
Yeah.
find and locate a great mentor. It could be somebody in your
Mm.
office. It could be somebody that you saw on an Instagram account. It could be somebody that you went to a professional training event and got wind of them on stage. Is tapping into sort of that proven track record and being a student, just being an understudy as best to your abilities you can. The second thing I would say to that question, Jennifer, is in sales, when you're an entrepreneurial sales individual, which that's what real estate brokers are, whether you're a onesie or you're manning a team of 15, is create a schedule and go into that role every day as if you were almost clocking a time card, as if you almost did have a boss potentially or a team shadowing you and checking in. Because the more that you can learn that accountability and that structure on the front end, I cannot stress enough how much that will help you build faster, stronger, and probably have a lot less headaches in the end.
It's so true. I love that you just said that. And that's come up with other masters that we've interviewed on the show. And that's to say, I think someone said, if you treat this job like a hobby, you'll get paid like a hobby. And if you treat it like a career, you get paid like a career. So I
Beautifully
love that.
said.
So yeah, so finding a great mentor, seeking education, creating a schedule that really puts you as, 40 plus hour a week. This is what this job takes, especially at the beginning to get going. That's great. So talk to me a little bit then about outside of your sister, what did you find? Like, was this trainings that you went to or books that you read, or what did you kind of dive into to get more education that wasn't necessarily hands-on with your sister?
In brokerage, whether it be
Got it.
individuals at your brokerage, whether it be
Yep.
another brand out there in our marketplace that we all have colleagues and friends at, tap into. It could be your managing broker,
Hmm.
it could be a mentor again, but actual programs and classes. The other thing we did when we started building our team is we hired a professional coach. We took the time and the money and the investment, and we actually like drilled that down to a huge commitment. So one of the leading industry coach, there's a number of them, they're all great, they all have their flavor, but we definitely tapped into that. And then I think the other thing is just being available, especially when you're new. And that's not to say don't have any work-life balance and don't do anything but work. But I believe that when you're starting out and kind of finding your way, it is going to be initially more than 40 hours a week, right? It is going to be all hands in on deck. And I think just being okay with that for a while and giving yourself that bandwidth and that space, that's going to, again, kind of benefit you as you get more tenure and more experience.
Definitely. I know some folks that start in, say, I gosh, I just don't have the money to hire that coach. And I will say that I think there's some people that got into the industry sort of without a lot of savings in place, sort of hoping that they'd have that first transaction to get them going. But you have to spend money to make money, and certainly spending it in the right direction. So absolutely agree. And this, for listeners that have listened to other podcasts that we've done here on Pocket Hours, this is a recurring theme. You have heard this also in the past from other masters saying, don't kid yourself that you've got it all figured out or that you can do it Lone Ranger style. Get the help of a coach. I love it. So then let's fast forward a little bit. So you've got your feet under you and you're cruising along and you're selling houses now. What surprised you that you liked about this business that maybe you weren't really thinking that you would? Like, oh my gosh, it turns out this part of the business is super fun. Can you think of something that comes up for you?
Yes, I love the negotiation process.
Nice. Yeah, me too.
I've
It's
got
so
I've
fun.
got that Aries type A personality that sort of
Nah, I love
derives
it.
that. And I wouldn't say it was a fundamental surprise because certainly in my first sales career, my first professional career, behind the chair, owning a salon, all of that certainly required some sense of negotiating on it on some terms, but that really driven competitive offer situation,
Hmm.
putting that
Hmm.
strategy in place, communicating it to the buyer, creating that safe space for everybody and that follow through, and really getting that buy-in on why your offer, your platform, your package to that seller, that listing broker is the best one out of the 5 or 30. There is something so powerful in that, and delivering that good news to that buyer. Boy, I mean, there's some days there is just nothing better. It is so exciting.
That is so true. Man, I do too. I love that you're an Aries. Me too. When's your
Yay,
birthday?
April 9th.
Nice. I'm April
Oh my
16th.
gosh, look at that. I love
Yay for
it.
Aries. And I love that we both love negotiation. That's actually one thing I say in my buyer consultation and listing appointments is like, hey, just so you know, I geek out on this stuff. It
Yeah,
is super fun for me. I dig
the
it.
nerd
Okay,
factor is
so
high.
yeah, very high. So conversely, then, in a vulnerable question for all of the masters that I interview, that you were like, I could go the rest of my life and not have to do this part of the job. What stands out for you there?
Yeah, it kind of comes down to that highest and best use of your time. My first mentor at L'Oreal called it your sparkle, your life particles, like what lights you up. And some of the things that I don't light up doing, to your
Yeah,
question, is
yeah.
like the heavy day-to-day management of like the P&L, or filtering through 7,000 emails to get to the heart of the contract, or to get to the one that that me as the sales expert, the sales principals, the co-owner really should be putting my eyes on. So I would say, and even if you are a new talent in the broker world, or you're a one person show, figuring out how you can either get some help with those things that you don't love, that don't light you up and turn you on, or being super structured about just getting through it. Like just put your head down, get it done,
Hmm.
so that you can bring
Yep.
that brilliance and that shine and that sparkle to all the things that you actually love doing.
Yep.
That's
That's
been a hard
great. Great
lesson.
advice.
And it's taken a
Yeah,
minute to
right.
figure that out.
Totally. Like what to say no to and stop like gritting your teeth and getting through
Yes.
it. And then to your point, like sometimes, right, in every job and everything that we do in life, let's be honest, there's some things we just do because we have to do them.
Yeah.
But really trying to structure our time to be doing the stuff that does light us up.
Yeah.
So switching gears for a minute, tell us a little bit about this new role that you have as the director of PR and communications and a little bit about the role. And then how do you balance that with still serving your clients out in the field of buying and selling houses? So give us a rundown.
Yes, this is sort of a fresh topic, Jennifer. So 7 months ago, I had the distinct honor and fortune to be offered a wonderful role on the corporate side of John L. Scott. My sister and I, collectively for Lisa, she's been with the brand 21 years, of course, me 10. But there was an opportunity, and sort of a woman that had been in the role that was amazing, had exited after about 5, 6 years, and she was just great and so talented. And I got to talking to some of the senior team, and the rest is history. Here we are 7 months later, and I'm trying on this new wonderful hat. Really, what it entails is being accountable for the internal and external communication, certainly to the consumer market, but also working closely with the C-suite team and the executive team internally. It could be various things from, our broker newsletter to new offices being bought and sold in the marketplace, new talent coming in and out, and just really overall PR and communications, news articles, newsworthy items. So that's a general overview of the PR and communications role here. How do I then stay engaged in my wonderful license and my first love called real estate residential sales, and certainly the team that I co-built with Lisa, is I'm still actively out in the field. I call it boots on the streets every fourth weekend. So every fourth weekend, I get to parlay with my other team members, and I am the buyer broker, the listing broker, the email taker, the call picker upper, the drop the sign off, do the lockbox. So I feel so grateful and fortunate that that's how I've also been able to stay very engaged in still the real estate side.
I love it. That's so great. And I would imagine this PR stuff lights you up. That's kind of something that you're digging.
It's exciting and fun. And don't get me wrong, I still have my learner hat on and figuring it all out 7 months in, but I'm very honored to be given the opportunity to represent the company.
That's great. That's great. I relate to that in some way because education is a passion of mine, as you know. And so being able to teach other realtors classes for clock hours and then do this podcast, it's certainly, I love helping people buy and sell houses, but this is one part of my work that I've created that I love because I get to learn, I get to talk to people like you and other masters, and it's a fun thing to do. So for those listeners, I want to challenge you to say, real estate is something fun that we do. It's work that we do, but also what part of that you also like can you invest in that's not just buying and selling houses? What part of real estate, what else in your life can you be focused on that lights you up to give you energy to do this work? So that's great. So I emailed you this question a while ago, so I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, but we encounter strange and weird and funny things in our work regularly. And one of the fun questions I ask people on the show is, what have you encountered that stood out to you as, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I saw this or that I heard this or something that came up in your real estate career?
Well, first of all, I have to thank you for prepping me because 10 years in, there are countless ones. So I appreciated the trigger, and I have picked one, Jennifer.
Excellent. Pocket Hours is brought to you by Scout Real Estate. Hi, I'm Jennifer Nelson, owner at Scout Real Estate. I started this firm with the vision of doing things differently, with our focus on legendary service for our clients and creating a community of producing agents to spur each other to do higher quality work. If you are interested in learning more about how a small group of like-minded brokers have come together to have some fun while doing a lot of business, reach out to me, 206-227-7966, or email jennifer@scoutrealestate.com. I promise you this, fun is a high priority for me, but so is winning. So if you appreciate those two things, you might be interested in Scout. Looking forward to hearing from you.
I'll give you the high level and make it brief. Year one, about 4 months in, brand new agent, joined my sister as a party of two. This is pre-COVID, so stick with me here for a minute. So I was taking a family out, and it's when humans used to get in this thing called your car, and you used to drive them to buyer tours, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I had this wonderful family of 5. It was an SUV I was in, and I was
Oh,
driving them to the buyer showing. And I will outframe, I was a good broker and did all the right things. I booked it, I called, and I affirmed I was arriving. So just to be clear, that happened.
yeah. Good job.
We show up, check. We show up. It's a very large home. By the time we get to the top level, and remember, I have the family of 5 behind me. I mean, literally, we're crawling up the stairs. There is a gentleman in the shower, and I will
Oh.
say, even though we're all adults, I'll just leave it at this. It was a glass door, so you can insert rest of story, and it doesn't stop there. This gentleman was a
No.
police officer, and on his bed were 4 guns
Oh dear.
and his officer suit. So
Oh boy.
the long short of the story is everybody was safe, nobody got hurt, nobody slipped out of the shower, but it was a very oh wow moment. And you know, as much as we're being sort of tongue in cheek and there is some humor to it, the flip side of it, Jennifer, is it made me in that instance realize the responsibility of just that being ensuring, you know, the humans in these homes are safe, whether you're the buyer broker or the listing broker, and that your communication, you know, I should have triple checked. I should have made sure the listing broker got that message and where that miss was. But the long story short, we turned around very quickly in the stairwell and everybody came down, and I am assuming he finished his shower.
You're assuming. I love that. It is interesting that no matter how much prep work we do, you know, humans are humans, and we end up with some funny stories later on. Yeah,
funny professional stories.
Yeah, in the moment, it's not that funny, right? So for new agents that are coming on board again, or even for people that are sort of mid-career, they're saying, gosh, we've done our first couple of years or 4 years, whatever. We're in this moment where we're feeling like we're plateauing. Our income isn't increasing. We're not, you know, our referral base isn't as strong as we want it to be. What advice do you think you would give to those sort of plateauing folks?
It goes a little bit back to our prior talk, is I would check in, which I've had to do more than once, even 7 months ago, a little bit of those fundamental existential questions, like, is it a time money conversation? Like, is time more important to you, or is money more important to you? That could be one intersection if you feel like you've plateaued or you're struggling or you're having a hard time. The other one could be checking in on, what is your presentation like? What is your brand story? Who are you? Who are you telling the consumer market and the professional market you are? And notably, who is it that you're trying to attract? Because sometimes I think, especially once we get tenure, and plateauing implies that you might have some experience behind your belt, is just kind of going back to the basics. Like, who am I in this industry? Who am I wanting to be around? What kind of customers do I want? How do I want to spend my time in my day? And is it time maybe to get some help? Right? Is it time to get out of email and get re-juiced up and charged by the thing that got you into the industry? Maybe it is time to offload some of those administrative tasks that we all have to do. And I think sometimes doing that and getting fired up, it's a little bit of that North Star compass conversation. I know when I have gotten fatigued, or I feel like I'm plateauing, or what's next, or, you know, what if, it generally is becoming that conversation. Like, where is my highest and best use, and how do I re-tap into that?
I love it. I love that so much. I think too, you kind of hit on it, is to say, if you're plateauing, it's because something's not lighting you up anymore, right? Like, what? Take a look at that. I love that.
Or fatigue.
Oh, fatigue. Oh, and going to a conference sometimes does that for me, where you get around other realtors and you hear a new way to do that. I've heard other people say, like, joining a support group. Like, honestly, you know, finding a couple of realtors that you get to talk to every day and saying, I love that too. Very good. Very good. Okay. So tell us a little bit about this market. I'm going to say the date right now because people will be listening to this in a couple of years and it won't make sense, but we're June 5th, 2023. It has been a very weird start to this year, I think. But if a seller or buyer kind of approaches you at this point, what's your party line, or what kind of things are you saying about the current market?
Yes. So what we're actively doing in our interviews, and even through communication at John L. Scott, certainly, is for a seller, our inventory, as we all know, anybody listening to this, has been historically low. So there is such an opportunity to lean into that and leverage that as a seller. The flip side of that is because our buyer consumer market gets increasingly savvy and their skill set, of course, hopefully they have a great buyer broker helping them have these savvy skill sets, is that home, it doesn't work anymore to be just on the market or to sort of be, oh, it looks good enough. I mean, we're finding, and I know, Jennifer, you're living this every day in your book of businesses, we've got to take every opportunity. If it's a low inventory market and you have a seller need or a life need to sell, get it list ready day one to the best of its ability. Make that diamond shine like no others on the street that launch week. And we've really found, I think, in the marketplace that is the tipping point. We know when it is a product that comes to market that wows everybody. And if it's priced strategically, not only is it going to move fast, but you're probably going to get multiple offers in many of the markets. I would say the flip side to your question, the buyer market is, I think consumers are getting a little bit more confident about the rate. I think they're shaking off a little bit of that, like, where's that 2 and 3% that all my friends at the office got last year?
Yeah.
And I think just being advocates and being coaches around the story behind rates, building that confidence in buyers that, I take people back to when I was 29 and bought my first home in Madison Valley. And I remind them I had a great credit score and I was in my prior career and I had a good job. And I took myself down to that thing called the lender office and I got a loan and I bought a house. But the rate was A, right? It wasn't B. And that was normal. And so I think as far as like market predictions, it's our job to help keep intelligence high, keep emotion low, give people perspective on scale around really what is the why of buying real estate? Do we want to stop making our landlords rich and wealthy and start putting that, wealth building advancement in our own pocket? And I just think, the market is definitely going through a little bit of an odd shift. You said it perfectly, Jennifer. But if you're ready and fully underwritten and ready to go as a buyer, there are great opportunities. And if you need to sell, boy, are you just like, you're going to be the hottest thing on the market if you're all ready to go. So those are just a couple little touch points that we've been discussing a lot at our team.
I love it. It's no surprise, listeners, I'm sure if you were with me in this call right now, you'd be nodding your head as I say this, but it's no surprise that you are the director of PR and communications at John L. Scott, because just the language, you're a wordsmith. So the words you're using are fun. It's fun to listen to you talk. How about that? So
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you.
And I want to go back to just a couple things you just said. One was you can jump online right now, anybody, including your sellers, and just go see houses that are quote unquote on the market and ready to go. And you can be shocked, as we all are regularly, by how not ready to go they are. And when we're touring buyers, same deal. So just they're hiring you, your sellers are hiring you to make this parade ready home, make this home absolutely the cream puff. And so when you don't do your job and you sort of let them run the show, it's apparent to not only your sellers, but to everyone else in the industry that the tail is wagging the dog and we need to have somebody step up.
Well, and Jennifer, I so appreciate you underscoring it that way, because another term that we always use, and it could be in the height of a seller's market, it could have been in 08, 09, and my sister then had the same perspective, all respect to her tenure. We have one shot to make a first impression. And I think it can be easy, some of us buyers or sellers, to be a little bit trite. Oh, it's Seattle. Oh, we have great job market here. It's beautiful. People want to buy here. That's true and good, but how remiss to not take this commodity called your home and turn it into its best version. As you said, boy, does it make a difference on that net result, on that end sale. So
for sure,
hang on to that one.
And I love that you said that the idea that when you need to buy a house, you should buy a house. And the rate's going to change and ebb and flow. And we have something called a refinance that people have forgot about, apparently. We're bringing it back to life to say there is no perfect market. So the people that are waiting to have a bigger savings or a bigger down payment, while meanwhile we're having, double-digit appreciation, are truly missing out on just getting in the market. your job and the way you said that was just to say, don't hesitate. And that's not because I need to make a commission. It's truly so that, gosh, down the road, you can say, thank you for pushing me a little bit to get yourself, as an owner of a home. So I love that.
Well, and especially with your tenure and your career background, I'm sure you have so many stories around this, Jennifer, is we've never had one person call us and say, you know, I probably
Wish I
really,
would.
5 years ago, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
3 years ago, I probably shouldn't have bought that house. That was a really unintelligent thing to do. We've never had it happen.
It's
Now,
true.
we know that it's our jobs to guide and coach individuals to not have any buyer remorse as it relates to right home, right fit, right price. That's a separate can of worms. But we have never once in my 10 years and my sister and co-owners 21, not one time has anybody called and said, boy, that was a really unsmart thing to do. So you are spot on.
That's right.
I agree with you.
I love it. I love it. I have a quick story. It's fun. I have a client. He'll remain nameless, but if he listens to this, he'll know it's him. And he was a single guy in his 30s, and we got into contract, and then he freaked out. And we were sitting at the table, and literally tears in his eyes, saying, "How do I get out of the deal?" And I looked at him and said, "You're not marrying the house. You're just dating it." And for some reason in his 30-year-old brain, that clicked.
Yeah.
And he thought, oh, I'm not in this forever, right? I have an out. I can sell it in a couple years. Indeed, he did. And he's one of those guys that came back and said, thanks for not letting me out of the deal, essentially, when I could have probably pushed to try to get his earnest money back. But I thought, you're going to really be mad at me later that I didn't say, nah, stick it out. You'll be okay, and help him get there. So I love that. So let's go back just as a sort of the end of this interview, and then I'm going to ask you a little bit about if there's anything else that you want listeners to hear. But you spoke about something that stood out to me, and that was about figuring out who you are and then sort of what lights you up. But let's go back just to the who you are part. I want you to say a little bit more about that, because I think that is a huge missing ingredient in the sea of 34,000 licensed brokers in Washington state. How do you be you, and why does that make a difference?
That is such a good question. I would say for me, and it's echoing, not only are we both Aries and soon to be new BFFs, because I'm learning by the minute some more things we have in common. I have the heart of a teacher. I have the heart and passion of an educator, of an adult learner focused trainer. I did that at L'Oreal. That was one of my jobs for 6 years. So why I'm going back to that is, how do I bring that to real estate every day? Certainly separate from now my director role with PR and communication. But my message to that question, Jennifer, is what lights you up? Because here's the thing, all of those intricate details that we have to get right for our clients to have a home run, and to be safe contractually, there are countless opportunities to educate, coach, train, and really have that interaction with people. So I would say, keep looking for that. If you feel like you're not bringing that to your real estate story, don't stop figuring it out, because it will light you up. And you know, as trite as that comment, like, you never feel like you've worked a day if you are passionate about what you do. It is really true. I mean, are there hard days, and do we get tired, and are there objections that come across our table that we're like, man, this is tough? Of course. I mean, I don't know one human that gets out of that game, but
Right.
I genuinely get out of bed and think, gosh, my skill set, my background, what I've learned from my coaches, I get to bring that to the table every day and have gratitude for doing that. And, at the end of the day, life's biggest financial decision. I mean, we all pause. It sort of just gives me shivers. It's like, if there is not honor, pride, and passion around being the advocate, the representation of that crossroads in someone's life, then definitely get out. If you don't feel that way, get out like yesterday, because that is such an empowering role to play. And so I think just going back into that, just tapping into like what charges you up. And if you feel like, gosh, some of the skill sets I just don't feel like I'm great at, I'm not great at 8 million of them. And eventually with time, and I love your respect of saying, yes, it takes resources to hire help. All due respect. Yes, it takes tapping that right talent and figuring out who that person, even if it's someone doing your social media, even if it's someone helping you, lick envelopes for your email or your snail mail campaign. But going back to remembering that you don't have to do it all. You don't have to be excellent at all of it, but do the piece that really lights you up. So that's what I'm trying, and it doesn't stop. I mean, that train, if I'm fortunate enough, I will never get off that, because that's what makes careers so worth having, worth the hard work, for sure.
For sure. Wow. Super well said. And listeners, pointing out again that that's going to ebb and flow too for you as this industry goes, right? Like what I first decided I loved in my first 5 years is different now that I'm in my 20th year. It's to say that ebbs and flows, and that's the fun of it, is that it continually morphs, and I love
how fortunate, right? It keeps boredom or cobwebs from growing. It's like, oh no, if we have a pulse and we're looking for it, it's going to keep us going.
That's so good. So good. And being that authentic self, I want to say one other comment, and I'd love, Kristine, your last comments on this, is to say people that are brand new in the business go, well, how do I talk about experience when I'm 3 years in? I'm not that experienced. And I will say, what did you do prior to this? What were you excellent at prior to this? So while, Kristine, you've been licensed for 10 years in real estate, legitimately, you've got 30 years of experience doing the same work, but in a different industry, right? So while we're not asking you to fudge the details, we are saying, well, what are you really asking me? And if you're asking me if I know how to work with people, and if I know how to negotiate, or if I know how to do this business, here's the experience I bring to the table, right?
It is the number one thing when I have had the great honor and fortune of being a teacher trainer here at John L. Scott amongst my fellow colleagues called other brokers, or when I was teaching at L'Oreal or sitting across from a buyer or seller interview. You said it perfectly, Jennifer, is if you're new, if you've been licensed for a week, I mean, like hot off the press, here's the good news. The brokerage firm that you're with, given the humans there and the brand name and the reputation or where they've come from, lean in on it. Lean in on it. If you're new at any of the brokerages, you can say, here's what we're about. Here's what our talent does. Here's our awards. Here's what we're known for. Or to your point, pull back from that first career. And if real estate is your first, lean in on letting that person in front of you know what you're great at. And here's one thing that I'll say in closing. And I say it with me at the forefront, is I used to fail miserably at sharing my wins. Some industries call it a brag book. Some industries call it a resume. Some people call it LinkedIn. What I would like to share with the audience is, don't forget to share out your wins. Your wins, if you're new, could be you just got the hire. Put that on Instagram, put that on LinkedIn, put that on Facebook, do an Instagram story. If you're tenured, like some tenure that myself or my team or my sister has, talk about being in the top 1%. Let everybody know your accolades and what you're involved in, that you were featured in Real Producer Seattle Magazine. I think so many times we get so afraid that bragging is going to sound like we're not sincere or we're not humble. But letting the consumer market and our fellow colleagues know the greatness that you're up to, gosh, people want to work with you. And they say, I want to learn about that person, or maybe I want to hire that person. So in closing, I would say, don't be afraid to talk about the things that you've accomplished. We have to share that out.
I love it. I love that so much. And that is in the spirit of humility, that's saying how progressive you are as a person and your self-awareness to be able to talk about what you're good at, right? That's very attractive. And it also shows the work that you've done personally. Someone that actually can't take a compliment or can't talk about what they do well is someone that you're like, gosh, I hope they continue to do their work, because, right, we want self-actualized people who say, hey, I'm damn good at this, not very good at this, right? Here's my reality.
And I'm very aware of all the things I'm not good at. There's a flip side to that.
Both. Yeah, self-awareness on both ends. Well, Kristine, this has been lovely. I have so appreciated it. I knew this was going to be good, and it took us a minute to get to this spot, but here we are, and it's been a great conversation. Thanks again.
I am so honored, and it's a privilege to be chosen and to talk to you, Jennifer, and be a part of this great podcast. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening in to Pocket Hours. I hope this has been interesting, fun, made you laugh, made you think, spurred you on to do and implement some new things in your business. I appreciate your time and hope this has been a good use of it, period. Now, go be the agent you would hire.